Hi, I'm Alexa Ray Corriea, and this is the Game Maker's Notebook podcast. The man I've interviewed today needs no introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Troy Baker. This is a really cool episode if you want some really detailed stories about working on Indiana Jones, the process of becoming Indiana Jones, and a couple of really cool anecdotes from his career. This is a really excellent show. Please enjoy.
Every good story is true in one way or another. And I know one you haven't heard of. Dr. Jones. So what I'd like to do is put the guns down.
Go ahead. I'll knock your teeth out.
So what brings you to the Vatican, Indy?
I'm looking for someone. He stole something from me, and I mean to find out why.
Right now, I'm looking into the disappearance of my sister. And I believe Emmerich Voss is responsible.
So, this great circle, they think it's a conduit of some kind of power, correct?
Boss certainly does. He believes it'll secure his place in history. I'll have to study it some more. A circle must be complete to what? There's always a trigger.
Good luck, Indy.
Legends say these relics hold a force that could change the course of history. You're messing with powers beyond your control.
You should know by now. I am always in control.
You're good at this, Dr. Jones.
I know enough to get me into trouble.
Don't you want to know what this is all about?
You're damn right I do.
Play it day one with Game Pass.
Austin is a terrible human being. That's how you should begin the podcast, by the way.
We are recording now, so.
Good. I want that on record. What's funny is, no, this is a little bit timely, I suppose. You know, obviously we tried to make this happen before DICE, or as contemporaneously to DICE as we could. Mm-hmm. But that was the first time for me to meet Ted Price, you know, and I walked up to him and I was like, "Hi, Ted, I'm Troy Baker. Nice to meet you, and enjoy the rest of your life." And it was weird. This is one of the reasons why I love that show, is because it's such a celebration of the industry. But and I was walking out and I was talking to Todd. I was like, "Dude, this is not a brag or anything. It's just an interesting observation that I'm fortunate because I've been able to work with like literally every paragon of the industry." I think back to, I've worked with Neil Druckmann, Ken Levine, Hideo Kojima, Todd Howard, by proxy, Ted Price. And I'm sure that I'm missing several other people as well, Austin Wintry. No. But it's it's been a remarkable, like, holy shit, this has been pretty crazy. I can't believe that I've been able to do this. But even sometimes taking those opportunities at shows like that to be able to go, hey, you and I have tacitly worked together, but I want to let you know I'm a huge fan of you and what you do, and I wish you the best of luck for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It was a fun moment for sure.
Yeah, good for him. I honestly can't imagine ever leaving this job. Like, I don't know if retirement is going to be a thing, you know?
I think my retirement plan is pretty much it's kind of like Bach, where you just at this point the composer died, and it's like in the middle of a session or something. That would be the best. I wouldn't want to freak anybody out by expiring at
In a
work, but
session.
yeah, but and Austin and I are very much the same mindset as far as like we're not. This isn't a job for us. Like we
Mm.
we do this. I do what I do because if I don't, my head will explode. And even when I hate it, and there were like calls that I was on today, um, and maybe some actors can relate to this. And if you don't, then that's fine. I work. I'm weird. I'm a weird oddball cat in this industry. I've never been the person that says, "Tell me my lines and my mark," and then I'm going to go to my trailer and go home. I want to know how everything works. I want to. I ask questions. I'm a pain in the ass, but it's always in service to the thing that we're trying to make.
Hmm.
And I I ask those questions because I want to learn. And I want to learn because I love what I do and I want to know every facet of it. So I don't, I'm like you, I don't ever imagine um, not doing this. I want to keep doing this. And at some
Yeah.
point, the industry is going to look at me and go, thank you for your service. You've done enough. You may now stop. And at that point, it's incumbent upon me to figure out what it is that I need to do next. This industry owes
Mm.
me something. I look and like the shelf behind me is, commemorates some of the things that I've been a part of. And if I'm lucky enough to get one of those, like every actor hopes to get, just like give me one of those roles, give me one of those monologues, give me one of those characters. And the fact that I'm like, damn, it's not lost on me that this is weird. This is not the norm.
Yeah.
So this industry owes me nothing. It's not like I need to beat it up in order to secure my employment. I've done a lot. What I will always do is I will always find opportunities and find ways for me to support this industry, for me to be involved with this industry. And ultimately, I will always find a way to tell stories because that's what I
Yeah.
love doing.
Listen, I know you have, an IMDb that's like 10 miles long, but to me,
8.5 miles in the kilometers.
8.5 miles. But to me, you will always be Snow from Final Fantasy 13.
Cool. Awesome. That's great. Can I tell
That
you a
was,
funny story about that?
yeah, because I also have a story about that. So go ahead.
Okay, well, whose is better? You go first.
Well, mine is, and I know you definitely don't remember this. The first time
Okay.
I met you, this was like pre-career. You were doing a signing for BioShock Infinite. And I walked up to you with a Snow action figure to sign. And you were so excited because it was the only non-BioShock piece of thing that someone had brought up to you like that day. And you were like, oh my God. I
Somebody
was a
actually knows
child.
this.
What?
You're what?
I was like a child. This was like a thousand years ago, but that was like the first time I ever met you.
Was it? This is my tea that I have to make sure I drink. I don't die. That's a good story. That was like 2000 when we started. I think it was like 2007, 2008. So I
Mhm.
recently moved to Los Angeles, probably within a year or two, and I auditioned. And the character that I think I auditioned for several, but the character that I got was Sid, and I was super stoked because there's always a Sid in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And so my session comes in and they go, so your session's at Studiopolis, and you will be recording the role of Snow. And I went, no, I'm Sid. And what I found out when I walked into my session, was that Jack Fletcher, who remains a dear friend and still a mentor, whom I had never worked with, had told Square, this is the cast. And they went, no, we think Troy Baker should be Sid. And he said, Troy Baker, again, we had never worked together. He goes, Troy Baker is Snow or I walk.
Wow. Interesting.
When I walk in, he goes, hey, kid, both of our asses are on the line, so don't mess this up.
That's a lot of pressure.
It was. So it was really my, I guess, working audition to see if I could pull off the character. And so after 4 hours, I'd come out of the booth or whatever, and he was like, we're in good shape. And I got to know Jack very, very well. And again, he remains a dear friend and taught me so much about the process of specifically acting purely with your voice and being able to trust and interpret and intuit what the story needs, what the character needs, working within that medium, working within that genre, because he's been with Final Fantasy since almost the very beginning. He directed the movie. Like he's an incredible resource. But yeah, that's Final Fantasy will always be a very special thing for me. It will hold a special place in my heart because it was the first time I'd had a lead role before, but I hadn't really, quote, earned it. I had been given it. And I guess the same thing is true with Jack, because I hadn't necessarily, in my opinion, earned it, but he just saw something in me that was like, if I can control him, we can go somewhere cool with this. And I think that's kind of been the running theme from my entire career is that it's not that I'm lucky. Any actor that comes in and like, there's a thing that I'm directing now, and I'll hear actors say this a lot. We're just like, oh yeah, just very lucky. And I want to tell every actor, don't ever say that. Don't ever say that, because there's not a single casting director, producer, or director that wants to hire just someone who's been lucky. They want to hire a skilled, seasoned professional, because they're resting, in the case of games, hundreds of millions of dollars on that character.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hang someone that's just been flipping a coin or carries a rabbit's foot. It's not that you've been lucky. I haven't been lucky. I've been fortunate. And there's a difference between those things, because what that means is that I've been the benefactor of someone else's good graces. Someone else has looked at me and said, I see something in him that he doesn't even see yet because I've got more experience than he does. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to trust him, and I'm going to rear him up in the way that he should go.
Rear him.
When he's older, he will not depart from it. And I have learned from everybody that I've worked with. But Ken Levine saw something in me that I didn't see. Neil Druckmann saw something in me that I didn't see. Jack Fletcher saw something in me that I didn't see. Tom Keegan, our performance director on Indiana Jones, I flatly turned down the role. Tom Keegan come to me. We can just jump straight in. Yeah. So here's what's funny. The full story is this.
Yes, I want the gritty detail how you ended up being Indiana Jones. All the lore.
Travis Willingham, much to his chagrin, loves this story. I, like everybody else, saw that teaser trailer go out in like October, November of 2000, whatever, 20. And I was like, they're going to make an Indiana Jones game. And then shortly thereafter, Travis comes to me and goes, I just got this audition. They're casting for Indiana Jones. And we were in his kitchen, and I looked at him and I went, you don't audition for that, dude. Clearly, you don't audition for that, because what do? Either you do Harrison Ford and you get critiqued like crazy, or you do something new and people reject it. Like, you don't want to be Chris Pratt. You don't want to do that thing where you're just constantly being compared.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to, my agent reaches out to me and says, hey, Tom Keegan, again, a director with whom I had never worked with before, wants to talk to you. Can I give him your number? And I said, yeah, what's Tom want? So Tom calls me up and goes, hey, I like you for this role. And I said, okay, one question. Do they want Harrison Ford? And he said, they want 1981 Harrison Ford. And I said, great. I'm going to give you two names. You call one of these two people. They do a dead on Harrison Ford. They got your problem solved. I'm here to help you. Best of luck to you. He goes, okay, thanks for that. I like you for this role. And I went,
Wow.
okay. So again, the rejection of it, because I was afraid. I don't want to put myself in a position where I look bad. I don't want to fail. I only want to do what people go, oh my God, you're so incredible. And if I put myself in a position where like, I don't know if I can jump that high. I don't know if I can lift that. I don't know if I can do that. I was scared. And I think Tom saw that. And I said, tell you what, man, I'll put myself on tape. If you think it's good enough, send it on. But if it's not, do us both a favor and keep it between you and I. He said, deal. So I sent him the tape, and he says, I'm sending it on. That kicked off months of back and forth. Here's another scene. So now we're all in the middle of COVID. So I set up a 2-camera Zoom setup like a dork in the library of my house. And I found a leather jacket and a fedora. It's the only time I've ever dressed up for an audition, by the way.
Wow.
And I was like, I want to see if you can't picture it. And a lot of that thing was trying to mask this, because this is not Harrison Ford. This is not Indiana Jones, right? Actually, right now, this feels a little bit more like Nathan Drake.
Yeah, actually.
It's giving Nate. And I did this audition by myself, and it's a big, what would end up, being a proto version of the scene where I fight with Locus, and then a proto version of a conversation with Gina. And he was like, okay, great. Thank you very much. And that was it. Maybe 5 minutes of a Zoom. And I'm like, all right, well, that was fun. At least I got to do it. And then like another month would go by, and he goes, they really want to work on the voice. I'm like, okay. He goes like, so I want to coach you through the voice, and I want to see if you can get there. So then we do another voice. He goes, okay, great. Thanks so much. And that was it. And then it's like month after going back with different meetings. And finally, Tom goes, there's just one last, it was like Rip Torn in Men in Black. It's like, one final test, an eye exam. I'm like, this is where they go. Thank you so much, but we're moving on in a different direction. They're just being kind. And so I get on Zoom, and there is Tom, there's our creative director, and there's Todd Howard. And I'm like, what's happening? And they said, well, we just wanted to kind of walk you through the story. And I'm like, why? They're like, well, the next call after this is your agent, but we want to make sure that you know what you're signing up for. And Todd, someone I've never met, I think we bumped into each other at E3 or DICE, goes, I want you to know I didn't want you to be Indiana Jones. Great way to kick off the conversation. And I was like, nice to meet you, Todd. And he goes, when they brought me your name, I rolled my eyes. No.
What a thing to say.
No. Because here's the reason why. I get it. It's like, oh, let me guess, you're just going to put Troy Baker in your game? Troy Baker's in every game. All I hear is Troy Baker. Just Troy Baker and Nolan North and Matt Murray. People rattle off the same names. Now, we can get to why that is in a minute, but I was like, dude, I totally get it. And he said, and then I did a blind taste test with you and 2 other people, and we did this in front of a lot of people. And they chose you every time. And I realized that wasn't necessarily like a huge compliment. It was giving credit, but it was also, you've set the standard, and that's the standard. Our standard will be excellence. Our standard will be everyone going, wow, I can't believe. And so much so that actually Axel, our creative director, or cinematics director, mistook one of my audition tapes for Harrison Ford. They were referencing that, and they were like, that's Troy. And he goes, oh my God. Ooh. So that does not mean that I just innately, inherently, naturally got there. I got there because of months of working, really Tom Keegan guiding me through and teaching me things about my own abilities and my own craft. And that's before we even got to set. And then once we got to set, that's when the work happened. I'll never forget my first day on set. We had to shoot. We're still in COVID. We have half of the team that's in Sweden and Uppsala, and the other half of the team is here in LA. And in order to meet the time zones, we were having like 4 a.m. call times.
Oh gosh.
So I'm in there, and we do the first day of shooting. And if you've played the game, the opening of the game is a shot-for-shot remake of Raiders. My favorite movie, like first movie I saw in the theater. Like literally, we start on the mountain, titles come up, and it's a shot-for-shot.
Mm.
So after the first day of filming, now it's like, okay, everything you did in the audition, everything that you did leading up to this, replicate, go. And we get going, and it's literally like, we're doing the idol scene or something, and it's like, drop your hand down to the right. Now, cock your head to the left because we're having to match for the frame. And we're shooting our
Yeah.
cameras on the day. We've got Kyle Klutz, who's our DP, who has two ARRIs, so cinematic cameras with anamorphic lenses on dollies and jibs that he's actually matching that iconic cinematography of Douglas Slocum from
That's
1981.
cool.
And at the end of the day, I'm like, well, that was fun. I'm totally getting fired. There's no way they're going to do this. They're going to use some other tool besides me. And the next morning, I get to work and I'm just waiting. They're like, well, we'll get through this next few days and then we'll find a different solution. And I get an email from Todd. And he goes, hey, man, I just want to let you know I was watching yesterday and you're doing an incredible job.
Wow.
And I was like, that's what I needed. And that would start a process of slowly eroding away the insecurity and leaning more into the trust. Because ultimately, Indiana Jones is not an insecure character. He's a very confident character. And it's not about the voice. It's not about the finger wag. It's not about the smirk. The real thing that I needed to find was the confidence that Indiana Jones had. And that was the biggest challenge.
So what was the process of finding him like? Like you talked about these months of auditions, you put yourself in a costume, where do you go mentally? Like, what was your research process like? Like, how much research did you do?
I mean, I think actually that became a stumbling block for me.
Really?
Because, I think that I'd never worked like this before. And I was like, you know what? I don't like to say I have a process and this is the way that I do stuff, because then it means that I'm telling people, you come to me and this is my process and this is how I work. And so you must work this way. Instead, what I like to do is go, what's your process? What are you guys going to do? And what tools do I have in my toolkit that I can bring to that? And hopefully we can accomplish the same result. Do we agree that this is the result? Great. Okay. You do your part. I'll do my part and we'll meet in the middle. But this was like, I've never really done this before like this. I've done the Joker and that was like, I don't know, this is just what I've heard in my head is Mark Hamill's voice. So let me come to that. But this was like, this is different. So I would wake up every day and I would listen to, or I'd watch Raiders, getting ready. I would watch Raiders. I would walk to set when we were shooting in Sweden and I would listen to John Williams' score. And then at lunch, I would watch Temple. And then for dinner, I would watch Last Crusade. And I would just rinse and repeat that. And it was a pretty grueling process. Like we had a lot of content that we needed to get through. It's a new crew. It's a really new process. We're all kind of acclimating to being over in Sweden. And so that first shoot in Sweden was rough. And I love telling this story. We get there in the first week and Friday comes and all of the stress is just compounded and all of the pressure that I've been putting on myself and all of the finding the bumps and the rough edges of the process have really worn me down. And there's this one specific scene where the nature of making games is such that you don't have your script and you go and shoot it. You have the overall story. We know what story we're trying to tell, and here are the scenes in that level, but we don't really know exactly what the level is. We're not quite sure what the gameplay is because we're working on those mechanics and making sure that design isn't necessarily online. World art is starting to get there, but we're not sure what this thing looks like. And so there's this one thing that I needed to reference, and I go, what does it look like? And they go, we're not sure yet. I'm like, you want me to give a specific performance, but there's something that doesn't have any specificity. Now, this is where I start showing my lack of experience. is because, as I would find out later from Tom, a good actor would be able to come up with a substitution for that. I didn't have that. I was like, I need to know what I'm looking at so that I can be specific. And I say the words that you should never say on set. This should have been figured out before now. And I just watch all of the air get sucked out of the room. And Tom finally is the first one to speak, and he goes, well, that's not helpful. And he was right. And I saw how I just killed the creativity in the room with my frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And we finish the scene, finish the day, and I go home, or I walk back to the hotel, and there waiting for me in the hotel bar is Tony Todd. And Tony had finished earlier. They had wrapped him out, and he watches me walk in, and I put my backpack down next to him at the bar, and he goes, T, let me buy you a drink. And that was about 6:30 at night. Cut to about 3 a.m. I've taken over the piano in the hotel lobby. We're all gathered around. Somehow Mescal got involved.
Of course.
Most of our cast is there. And I remembered what we're here to do. And over the course of the weekend, I nursed a gargantuan biblical hangover. I showed up Monday morning. I didn't see anybody that weekend. I just kind of sheltered myself. And Monday morning comes, and Tom walks up to me, and I expect to kind of hear hey, you can't do that again. We really need to keep our tempers in check or whatever. And I didn't like Christian Bale on set or anything, but definitely it was clear that I was frustrated.
Yeah.
And he just walks up to me, and I go, here we go. And he looks at me, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he says, just trust that it'll be there. That's it. And so I go get ready, and I start to put on Raiders, and I was like, no. And I was like, instead of listening to John Williams, I'm going to listen to Chopin, something else. And I just shifted my routine. And I went to set, and I remembered that Harrison Ford isn't trying to be Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford just is Indiana Jones. And he's not trying to prove to anybody anything. And I was like, well, why can't I do that? It's not about the voice. It's not about the finger wag. It's not about anything. It's about, well, why don't I just be Indiana Jones? And that became my process of just, what's the purest, simplest version of this? And it's remembering. I think I'd forgotten that this wasn't theater. And I'm so tired of people calling this, oh, it's like mocap. It's just like theater. No, it's not. It's sure, you can draw some comparisons if you want. But number one, it's not theater because I'm putting a camera on it. And theater allows the audience to look wherever they want. Film goes, you're looking here. And I'm telling you exactly what you're looking at, how you're looking at it. And even the angle of that camera is going to determine how you feel about that. And there's also this notion of there's no audience. Mm. It's not theater. And on top of that, my wardrobe, if you've seen any pictures behind the scenes of any mocap shoot, they're ridiculous. It's just everything is working against you. The suit is ridiculous. And I realized I was like, oh, I've got hundreds of people back at the ranch, as I say, that are incredibly skilled artists that are working to make sure, damn, that looks just like Harrison Ford in 1981. I don't have to do that. It's about us together.
But you did kind of have to match his physicality too, right? So you said, if you do a Harrison Ford impression, everyone's going to compare you. If you do your own thing, everyone's going to hate it. So where would you put your Indiana Jones?
I think that for me, if I had to go out and do a one-man show as Indiana Jones, tickets better be cheap. You know what I mean? I think that there's something that I can do that inhabits, and there is a transformation because there is a way that he stands. There is the smirk. There is certain things that I've learned how to adopt in order to have my physicality inhabit that character. But we're working in concert together by they put the leather jacket on me, they put the fedora on me, and then they put Harrison's face on me. And I've seen the behind the scenes stuff, and it's like, that doesn't look anything like Harrison Ford. But man, it's the sum of its parts. And that's the way that I like to work. I've never been I like being in a band. You know what I mean? I like how I could go out and I could play a solo show all credit to Ed Sheeran. Like, he's an amazing artist. The fact that he can do all of that stuff himself. But there's this feeling that I get, and I started off in music, and so I'll always kind of relate this to music. But there's a feeling that I get. I'm playing these shows right now. We're in the middle of COVID. I started writing all these songs for Joel, inspired by The Last of Us, and we're finally getting out to where we're going to share these. And obviously, there's a lot of buzz. The Last of Us is swinging back under into the zeitgeist, and so it's a good opportunity for me to go, hey, here's my thoughts. Just it's not taking away or necessarily even adding to. It's just a commentary about that. And what would it be like if we had ever heard those songs that Joel had written? And there's a friend of mine that's like, you just go out with a guitar and you do that yourself. I'm like, that's not what I want to do. I love the moment where I look across at my buddy Christopher Ray, who's an amazing producer, and he plays pedal steel like nobody's business. When we're just in the pocket together, and it's like we're feeling where the song is taking us, as opposed to playing the song and showing people where it goes. And we've even started bringing in a local musician that we've never played with before, we've never rehearsed with before. We have no idea what they're going to play, and the instrument changes every time. Like this one guy, Gary, in Houston, we're like, can we find us a local musician? This guy played harmonica and trumpet. I'm like, kick ass. What are you going to bring to this? And it became like this incredible blues leaning kind of thing. And then we're going to go to a different place. We're going to have a fiddle player, and it's a completely different kind of performance. So my whole point in saying that is that what I like best is I can go out there and I can do it on my own. But fortunately, especially with this project, especially with Indiana Jones, I had an incredible foundation of 40 years of this character. I also had an incredible team of people that were able to go, we got you. You go out there and you go for broke. And you show us how Indiana Jones moves and how he responds to the problem, how he feels about Gina, how he feels about Voss, how he deals with Locus, how he is driven by his obsession for finding these ancient artifacts and the call to adventure. And then we'll put the veneer on it, and we'll make it look like Harrison Ford. All you have to do is show us the spirit of Indiana Jones, and we've got the rest.
That's incredible. Did you collaborate with the writers at all? What was your relationship? Oh, okay. Oof.
I can just hear like Tommy and Ed and our entire writing department just, sure, it was a very collaborative. I drove them crazy. They are the kindest, most gracious, giving. It is so true. It lives and dies on the page. And if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. I just had an opportunity. I'm going to drop a name. I was at MegaCon in Orlando, Florida, and that green room was a fever dream. It was like that, whatever the painting is, where you see like all of it, just like James Dean and Humphrey Bogart and Elvis Presley, everybody. Yeah. It was the craziest. Like, I can't believe so and so is here. And one of those people was Ron Howard. And I said, man, wow, you're one of my favorite filmmakers, and I would be remiss if I just didn't ask you as a new director, can I ask you some questions? He was like, sure, of course. And I asked him, I was like, what would you tell yourself starting off? And he was like, I don't know if any of the advice that I would give myself today would make any sense to the director that I started off to be. But I would say one thing: be tougher on the script. You've got to be as hard on it as you can. It has to be the best version of the script. If it's not, you can't make up for that later on. You can't take a bad script and cover that with good performances. It has to be a good script. And so I take that very much to heart. And we were hard on this script. And that's not just me, that's everybody. That includes our writers. That includes our cinematics director. That includes everybody at MachineGames, at Bethesda, at Lucas. Everybody was hard on this script. Our narrative department got their asses kicked, and in the best way. And I think that it made a better game. But there was one line specifically that I don't often do this, but this was one that I was willing to die on. And it's the line that for anybody who hasn't played the game yet, I don't want to spoil the game, but
you can.
You can go for it. There's one line when they pitched me the game. It's this incredible moment of vulnerability that Indy has with Gina, and really, I can spoil this. It's okay.
Yeah, we are under the assumption that everyone has played the games we talk about. This is most of our audience is developers, students, people like that. So we're digging into the craft, so it's okay to spoil.
If people have played the game, they'll know what scene I'm talking about. But if not, it still even works in an abstraction, because the first time I heard it, it was without the context of the game, but it was within the story. And it's this moment of respite between Indy and Gina, between the bullets, between the bombs. It's a moment of quiet. And Gina asks Indy, was there someone? And he said there was. Didn't work out. Wasn't good at keeping my promises. Fixing the porch. Fancy dinners. And that landed on me so hard, because that was the moment of revelation for me, where if you look at Last Crusade, when they are leaving the castle in Austria and they're going towards Berlin, and it's like Marcus is this way, but the Grail, or the journal is this way. And he says, we have, Sean Connery's character says, we have to find this. And Indy says, this is an obsession, Dad. I never understood it, and neither did Mom. And I realized when he said it wasn't good at keeping my promises, it was the simple things, fixing the porch, fancy dinners. That's when he understands this is an obsession. And I do understand it. I understand it. I am my father's son. I'm just as obsessed. That was the model that was given to me. And I understand that as a dad. What I am doing right now is modeling for my son how a husband, a father, a man is supposed to be in this world. And that's what Henry Jones Sr. gave Henry Jones Jr., is a father who was too busy for his kid. A man who's obsessed with, you told me that I wasn't as important as people who lived hundreds of years before. And it's like, he does understand that formed him, and it came to light with Marion. So that at the end of the game, we have this beautiful Casablanca ending. Gina is getting on the plane and she says, look me up when this is all over. Maybe we can have that fancy dinner. And Indy looks at her and says, I'd like that. And he puts on the hat. We hear the Raiders march, and he walks off into the sunset. And it's at that moment where he goes, that will never be me. That will never happen. I will never fix the porch, and I'll never have that fancy dinner. And that line became a big sticking point, because when fear comes into play and it erodes the trust between either the team or the audience, it degrades the quality of the thing you're trying to make. We have to be fearless. And the second that we make something fearful, it never lands. And I think there was a fear that line wouldn't land. And maybe I understood it in a completely different way than anybody else. But that's the one that I was willing to die on. And it got contentious. Like Tom and I argued about it. They weren't being surreptitious about it. But they were like, let's maybe try this line here. I'm like, it doesn't work here. And I won't. I won't. They're like, well, let's just get one just in case. And I was like, I refuse. Sorry. This is the one where I'm not going to give it to you so that you can have it because you might think that it works. And I'm telling you, it doesn't. And so it was something that we fought on. And I would encourage any actor, there's a difference between falling on your sword and brandishing it. And what I learned through this process was there's never any good that comes out of brandishing a sword. And maybe sometimes you need to fall on it. But what I've learned is like the earlier on in the process I can be, and the more of a partner that I can be in it, more on the same side of the table as I can be, we're going to accomplish a better result. But trying to wage that war on set or in the booth is the worst time to do it. And so what I try to do is I try to get, whether I'm an actor or a director, I try to get as far enough away from that moment in the planning process so that, hey guys, I just want to let you know, I really want to create a clear delineation line on this specific notion, scene, line of dialogue, whatever it is, character trait, whatever. This is one that I'm willing to die on. I can't be that way on every line. But then it was funny because we had already had that battle. And then we're in ADR at this point. So we've shot all of our principal photography. We've shot all of our stunts. We're just doing ADR at this point. And there's one scene when you're in Sukhothai, and the line, I'm sitting in the booth, and the line is, "Hello, Amran." And I say, "Why am I saying this line?" And Tom literally goes, "Jesus Christ, Troy, just say the line." He's so frustrated. And I was like, "Why am I saying the line?" They're like, "You're saying hello. Why are you nitpicking?" And I remembered a story. Are you ready for a tangent?
Yes, absolutely.
I had a conversation with Stephen Tobolowsky, who's a famous character actor, in addition to being in like one of my favorite movies. Oh my God, I'm drawing a complete blank. Stephen Tobolowsky played Sammy Jenkins in Memento. But he also, before that, was Needle-Nosed Ned Ryerson in Groundhog Day. And I remember asking Stephen one time, I was like, that had to be so much fun working on Groundhog Days. I mean, you're working with hilarious people and it's a great story. He was like, "Oh, it was miserable. It was a terrible time." And I was like, "How?" And he goes, "Well, that's the movie where, famously Murray and Ramis fell out and never talked to each other again." And he said there was one moment where they're so frustrated. It's towards the end of shooting. And a PA comes to Harold Ramis and says, Bill won't come out of his trailer. And he's like, "I've had it. I can't." He goes and he bangs on his door. And he's like, "Why won't you come out?" He's like, "I need to know what Andy's wearing." He's like, "You don't need to know what Andy's wearing. You need to focus on what you're wearing. That's the only thing that matters. Get dressed and get out." He goes, "I need to know what Andy's wearing." And he goes, "Please, Bill, please tell me why you need to know what Andy's wearing." He's speaking about Andy McDowell. And he goes, "Is she wearing her clothes, my clothes, no clothes?" And it dawns on Harold Ramis, it's the last scene. If you've seen Groundhog Day, it's the morning after. What is Andy wearing? Because that means there's a lot of implications. If she's wearing her clothes, nothing happened. His clothes, something happened. No clothes, we know exactly what happened. And Bill was like, "What is she wearing?" And he was like, "I don't have my movie." So he gathers the entire cast and crew together. And he goes, "All right, everybody, we're all going to vote. What is Andy wearing?" And it came down to like key grip, something. And he was like, "What is Andy wearing?" And they said, "She's wearing her clothes." And that's what you get in the movie. So I'm looking at this going, why am I saying hello, Amran? What happened just before this? They're like, you just escaped from this bad trap. Was it bad? Oh yeah, you barely escaped with your life. Okay. So I've just barely escaped from a trap. Yeah. Who was with me? Amran. What's my line? Hello, Amran. How about That was close. Boy, glad we made it. How the hell did you get out of here in front of me? Like, there's all these questions that I would have,
Yeah.
and we realize, oh, we have even a potential design flaw because Amron can't get ahead of Indy. So they're
Yeah.
like, understood. Again, it's not about every line, but there are times when it's incumbent upon me as an actor to understand just the basics. Where am I coming from? Where am I going to? What do I want? What's in my way? It's all the basic actory questions. But if I'm instead focused on how am I going to say this line, that's not me doing the work. And
Yeah.
I've really noticed this trend towards actors just not doing the work. Show up on time. Be off script. Know your character. Like it's the most basic thing. Instead of worrying about all of the accoutrement, let's just do some work.
Yeah. I want to touch on something you said. You kind of read my mind, because talking about the collaboration between writers and actors. As a writer, I love when, I have an actor get my script, get my material, dig into a character, ask questions. Why am I saying this? I don't feel like I would say this character. I would say this line after they've been playing them for months or whatever. But in
Sure.
games, it's different because it's not just the writer and the actor collaborating. It's the writer and the actor and then design. You have that
Right.
whole piece that, to your point, what you were saying earlier, sometimes it's not finished when you begin shooting, when you begin writing, it's always in flux. So how
Yes.
do you manage that relationship, that sort of that fight you're talking about, that dialogue between the actor and the writer, knowing that there's kind of like this third entity that is over both of you? Like, how do you manage
Great
that?
question. I think number one, I have to humble myself and understand that I'm a cog in the wheel. I am not the wheel, and I'm sure shit not the machine. So I need to understand how this wheel is built or how this cog is built most specifically. But it's, again, I learned this through experience, and it wasn't like a great process. I was asking, we would go to on The Last of Us, part one, we would have these great table reads, and I would sit there and I would have all these super high level questions. And Neil finally, I was taking up all the time. So there's no other time for anybody else to ask questions, first of all. And the questions that I had, it's a really good point. And so he was like, here's what we're going to do. We would shoot about once a month, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday was rehearsal, shoot Thursday, Friday. So Tuesday night, Neil and I would get a bourbon, get on the phone, and go through the script. And that's really where our relationship, our working relationship, and our friendship was born. Because it was, let's fight over this. Let's argue. Let's push and pull, and iron sharpens iron. That's a really good point. Actually, I want to kind of maybe incorporate that in the script. Or, okay, there's one thing you're not understanding. And so it became this very much of a respectful tete-a-tete, fence match before we actually got there on Wednesday, so that when we stepped foot onto either the table read or the stage, I've got all my questions out. And now it's everybody else. And now I get to react to everybody. That was coupled with, hey, I think this line needs to change. And Neil put up with that for a while, probably too long, until he finally came up to me and he said, I hear you. Instead of saying, I think the line should change, I want your first response to be, what about this scene, this story, or this character do I not understand? And then if I'm like, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that either. Now together we can work through the problem. But if the punt to is always your line that needs to change, all I hear from you is that something is bumping for you. So let's figure that out. I try to take that approach with writers as well. And typically I would say my most contentious relationship, even more than directors or producers, is writers. Because I will push a writer to be the best version possible, because they're pushing me to be the best possible. They spend hours upon hours or days or weeks or months or years working on that scene or that script. And then they put it over to my hands to go, respect this enough by bringing your A game. And I do every time. I don't half-ass anything. If I'm going to half-ass it, I'm going to step aside and let somebody else full-ass it.
You whole ass everything.
full ass everything. So if I look back and go, I think there's a better version of this. Let's workshop this together. Or even better, there's something about this that I don't understand. Can you help me understand something here? And I've had some writers go, well, yeah, we just need to tell the player that, this is what this is. And I'm like, okay, great. I have a follow-up question. They don't know they're in a game. So you having this wonderful conversation to serve a purely systemic purpose, totally get it. That's what you want to do, go for it. But I don't expect a HUD to serve a narrative or emotional purpose. So don't have this cinematic or this emotional scene serve a systemic purpose. And I learned that from Shadow of War, where we were constantly telling the player, this thing is the most important thing ever. Oh my God, can you believe how important this thing is? This thing is super important. Hey, player, you really want to get this thing. As opposed to just trusting and believing that it is. And every scene is, of course we have to go get that thing because it's important. But we don't have to say that. It just becomes important. So for me, it starts in prep. It starts in, first of all, being familiar with the script. I will ask for materials as early as possible, even if it's a rough version. Let me see this scene. I can see how it's growing. I won't become attached to it. I won't become married to saying it in a certain way. I want to see how you evolve a script. Then and by the way, this goes for auditions too, which I don't audition. I will meet with you and we can get together on Zoom or in person. But the whole put yourself on tape and send it off into the ether, some people that works for it. It doesn't work for me. I don't care. I'm not here to show you that I can act. I'm not even here to show you that my take on the scene. I want to see how you and I are going to work together. Do I want to work with you? Do you want to work with me? Do I have a sense that you know where the story is going? Do you think that I have a sense of where the story is going? That's what the audition process should be, not watch this bitchin' take on this scene. Like, I'm going to wow you with my choices. Nobody cares if you can act. They need they need to hire an actor, because I guarantee you this, more actors have been cast off of a great audition that have been replaced because of poor set behavior. Perfect example was, and I'm sure he wouldn't be this way either, but Judd Nelson, who was hired to play John Bender in Breakfast Club. John Hughes's seminal, incredible 80s movie that is so iconic. He almost fired Judd Nelson because of his set behavior. That's something he originally was going to cast John Cusack as that character, but was like, he's too nice. So he hires Judd Nelson. Judd Nelson was like, watch this shit. I'm gonna be Bender all the time. And he was like razzing Molly Ringwald. And Molly was like, you can't, dude, I'm at Crafty right now. And I need a break from the scene. I don't need you giving me shit the entire time. So I want to identify, as a director, I want to identify that. And I had we would be doing auditions, and the person who was like, filming the audition, have this great conversation with the actors. They would come in. Do you have any questions about the scene? Do you have any questions about the character? That's the first test, by the way. Because if somebody goes, no, ready in, razzle dazzle me. If you don't have any questions, I sent you a snippet of a scene from an entire story about a character that, by the way, that's not even their real name, didn't really give you much of a character description, zero information, and you gave me a performance. Now, something you did worked, but oh my God, if you've got the opportunity, hi, I'm your performance director, there's your cinematics director, there's your narrative director, and there's a producer. All of these people are here to answer any question you have. Do you have a question? Nope. I know you're not a partner. I know you're not a collaborator. I know someone who wants to come in and razzle dazzle and get out of here. Great. Someone who goes, actually, yeah, I have a lot of questions. That's okay. It's your time. You got 15 minutes. Let's go. We would get through that whole process, and then they go, all right, let's start the scene. And then the guy would be like, just cite your name for me. I'm like, were you not filming all of that? Like, that's what we need to show to everybody going,
yeah.
Walked in the room. That was the character. Or did you see them transform into the character because they came in and they were super meek. And then when the scene started, they came alive. It's like, we need to see that that's what we're dealing with, because we're not casting a character, we're hiring an actor. And that is a very important distinction.
Yeah. I think I agree with all of that. And also, I feel like so often, maybe in this industry, some people feel like, oh, this is the actor we cast. Here they are. That's not true. Like, the actor is also a collaborator, a developer, if you will, on the whole process. That's why I like the DICE Award. You said it in your congratulations again in your speech for indie. It's not just the award is not just for the actors, for the act. They list the actor, the writer, the creative director, like everyone who put everything into bringing that character to life. And I think that is something that we should remember when we get to this part in the development process.
I agree. And also, I want to tell actors that come in as like, listen, I joke all the time. I'll be like, there's no film in these cameras. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're never going to let a bad version of this out. And I know what it feels like to feel that weight and that threat that I impose upon myself of going, what if they get a bad one, that's the one that they use? So I always want to tell actors, it's like, don't let your best take be on the 405 on the way home. Like, leave everything. My job, David Milch had a great quote. He said that an actor will either operate out of fear or faith. And it's our jobs as creatives to provide an environment that allows them to circumnavigate that fear and operate in that place of faith. So my job is to equip you. My job is to remove all the obstacles in your path other than the one that the character that you're playing is faced with, and then just let you fly. Just go crazy. And that comes down to, let's just get one for safety.
Yeah.
You know what? I love what you did. Let's just get one as written, just so we have it. I refuse to do that to an actor. If an actor, well, they missed this line. They said, we need to go to that instead of this. It's like, I understand there's a distinction between this and that, sure. They didn't say sir at the end of that. It's like, okay, is that honorific really important? It's like, no, I wrote it. Well, let's just make sure that the writer feels that they've been honored. I'm like, the writer has done their job. I'm assuming that they did a lot of due diligence and a lot of preparation before they went to the page, and they finally put that page down. They feel really confident about this script because they put locked on top of the page. So they've done their part. Now it's over to us. I don't want a writer running alongside our conveyor belt on the assembly line and telling me how to put that cog into the wheel. It's up to us now. Just trust us. We know we've prepped and we're lined up, and you've told us, here's why I wrote this scene. Here's what's at stake in this scene. Here's how design is going to integrate into this scene. If you give me all those things, got it. Now trust me. Take the training wheels off. It's okay. Let go. We got this. We got you. And if I look at an actor and they go, perfect example is this: the ranch house scene in The Last of Us. The line in the script, and I somewhere I have the original, so you could see this, and I would publish this so people could see it. Everyone that I've ever cared about has left me except for you. That's the line. There's no shove. There's no expletive. What we get is shooting the scene multiple times. It's okay. It's good enough, by the way, for anybody else. Circle it. Fourth take. That's the one. Print. Moving on. We can go about the rest of our day. And Neil just goes, I just feel there's something else there. Again, it wasn't that the scene was bad. It all worked. We hit our marks. No one flubbed a line. It was landing. It was good. And he goes, it's just not, I don't know what it is. And I said, can we take 5? He goes, take 10. And I went over in the back of the stage and I sat on the 2-incher mats. And I'm like, what am I missing? I don't know what I'm missing. It feels, and I'm trying to gin up something that's false and not working. And I'm like, maybe I need to say this line different or whatever. And Neil comes like, all right, let's get back into it. No notes, just go. And Ashley walks up and is like, do you have any idea what your life means? Don't tell me that you were treading on mighty thin ice there. There's a little bit of a tweak there. Mighty came out. That's fun because the line was, "You are treading on some thin ice here." And I said, "You tread on some mighty thin ice here." That's Texan coming out of me. So now we're starting to teeter off the rails a little bit. And Ashley goes, "Everyone that I've cared about has left me. Everyone shoved fucking except for you." Now the scene goes boom, takes off. So much so that when they go to adapt it for HBO, writer, chink chink, "Everyone fucking except for you" is in the script because now that's the scene.
Yeah.
What would have happened? That's so, oh my God. Did everybody feel that? That was electric. Circle that one. That's our best. Let's go one more time just for safety. And let's just get without the shove and without the fucking. And
Brings the energy down.
it also conveys to the actor, it doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
I'm always going to choose the safest one. So when I say be risky, you're like, why? So if there's ever an actor that does something that goes off, great. I love that. How do you feel about it? Maybe. Great, let's go again. Take all of that energy. Now just try the words. But if it's like what they just did, the shove and the fucking and the mighty, oh my gosh, that's electric. Let's get it just to be safe. I will not. I will do that publicly, by the way. I won't do that as an aside. I will do the theater, letting the actor know I've got your back.
Yeah.
And I will tell the writer, that's now the line. That's now the line. It's now changed. And as I learned from Jack Fletcher early on, that's the line or I walk. And I will put everything on the line if I believe in something.
I want to talk about your directing as well, but something you just said reminded me. I read an interview you did with GQ recently about Indiana Jones, and something that you said really struck me because as a writer, I feel like I fall into this impetus as well. And also it was just kind of funny. You talked about sort of your past and your acting, and how you'd beat yourself up. The quote is, on set, this is what the writer wrote, on set, he would overcompensate, Macbething all over the place because I wanted to impress people. He would cause friction by asking high-level creative questions about things he doesn't control. He still often does. After rapping on 2014's infamous Second Son, director Nate Fox called him a very powerful force. It was not a compliment.
Yeah.
So, and I read that, and the Macbething all over the place really kind of struck me because I feel like as a writer, so right now I'm actually working with the former Shadow of Mordor team. I'm working with Michael DePlatter and that whole team. And yeah, it's crazy, right?
Okay, well, offline about that because I want to hear how they're doing. I love DePlatter.
We will. Oh, he's doing great. I know he listens to the show, so shout out MDP. And we're working on a Marvel project. And so there is a lot of, I think, impetus to want to, push all the way into that big, larger than life, like superhero, like big stuff. I feel like when you have that pressure on you, maybe you have a tendency to overact. I have a tendency to overwrite and then pull back. And that's a skill and a muscle that you kind of learn over the years. So I want to talk a little bit about that in that headspace. Like, do you still feel that way? How did you get yourself out of that headspace? How do you balance that? Wanting to give your all, wanting to, like we've been talking about for the last hour, going not just the extra mile, but the extra 10, but still making sure that you're still grounded, like you're still here.
I learned a lot about that from Neil. What's the least amount that I can do? What's the least amount that I can say that conveys what's at stake with this scene? And so, like, a perfect example, I heard someone listing this was, I think it was the whole 9 yards. I can't remember. It was some prison movie with Clint Eastwood, and he said, someone asked Clint Eastwood, they're in prison, right? And he goes, "How was your childhood?" And Clint Eastwood responds, "Short." That's all he says. And that gives you everything that you need to know. And instead of going, "Well, I'll tell you, Daddy was a bastard, Mama drank." It's like, we don't need all of this. We need to know what was the effect of whatever that childhood was. And I think for me, it's one of the number one notes that Neil would always give me. And if he listened to this, he's going to laugh. He's going to say it along with me. He's like, do less. Just do less.
Yes.
And I think that most actors Tom Keegan calls it, he was like, man, actors know how to eat a potato chip. And they're like, ugh, ugh. It's just so much schmacting going on, as opposed to just don't underline, just do it. And it all comes down to trust. I keep saying this, but it's like trusting that the camera is going to see it, trusting that they're going to put it together and they're not going to let the bad version out. If you have a thought, think it, but don't show me that you're thinking the thought. And that's the hardest thing for an actor to let go is, am I doing enough? And the reality is you're probably doing too much. What's the least amount that I can do? What's the least amount that I can say? And also understanding that Richard Burton had this quote when asked how he did the acting so well. He goes, it's quite easy. I will give you everything, but if you give me nothing in return, I will take it from you. And that is understanding that I will only do what is necessary for this scene. But the scene is a beast, and we must together feed the beast. And if we don't feed the beast will die. And no one is coming to see this thing without a beast. So let's feed the beast. Let's not feed each other's egos. Let's not set each other up for this amazing acting. Just do the thing. And for me, part of that was every actor works differently. But I used to be the person who would run around after cut, like playback. And you would literally hear that. It was cut, Troy calling playback. And of course, all the interns there or whatever, trying to make actors happy. So they would do playback. And I would watch the scene and go, oh, okay, I don't know what to do. Can I go one more time? And directors wanting to be accommodating to actors go, sure, we have time. We can do one. Okay, let's do one more time. I would do it again. And finally, one day walking to the parking garage when we were still at the Culver stages, Neil came up to me and he goes, great job today. So I have a favor to ask. I was like, yeah, what do you need? He goes, you call for playback? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I need you to not do that anymore. And I went, okay. I know you're new here. But that's how I work. And that's my process. And he goes, no, you need to trust me. And your job is to be viewed, and my job is to view. So if you'll trust me that if I've got it, then we've got it. Now, I could be wrong, but I need you to trust me. And I remember hearing a friend of mine who worked with Clint Eastwood one time on Flags of Our Fathers. Clint was over here doing some scene, and he and this scene partner that was playing his brother were working out the scene. And so Clint comes over and he goes, let me see what you're going to do. So they go through the scene. Clint looks back at his DP, goes, did you get it? DP goes, we got it. He goes, great, moving on. And my friend goes, we were just rehearsing. And Clint stops and he looks back at him and he goes, would you have done anything different? No, he goes, then trust me, we've got it. And we are moving on. It's like, you get one with Clint. And the same way with Kojima. A lot of times he's like, I just need the one. So if I like it, great. Yeah. I have to ask for a second take with Hideo. And a lot of times it's like, I feel like there's something better. And he's always accommodating. He's like, sure, but I like what you did. And so it's this, I wrestle, and I think a lot of actors wrestle with this insecurity of was it enough? Am I good enough? Am I going to wow people? Will I get that award? Is this what they're going to choose to clip out the BAFTAs? And at the end of the day, that character doesn't know any of those things. They're just having that moment in their life. And I don't need to underline it. I just need to do it with as little as possible. And there's a difference between simple and boring. And as long as you're not being boring, I'd much rather you be simple.
So translating into your directing, when did that come to you? When were you like, I think I want to try directing. I think I want how did you get there? How did you get here?
Ask Michael the Platter, because he had to go through my boot camp. So when we did Shadow of Mordor, which was so much fun, Christian Cantamessa was our director and also the writer. and also the cinematics director. And so those are three very unique functions within a game, right?
Yes.
There's no auteurship in games. It is always
I agree.
multiple people doing multiple things that could belong to one person in a TV or film. So they did that process. The game went to scale, and they're like, we now need to have these responsibilities. To begin with, Shadow of Mordor was not supposed to have a story. It was supposed to be all, procedurally generated, and there was no real story that was happening there. You might get some VO, but that's it. And then towards the end of the process, they were like, we need a story. So we crammed in, like, I think it was 12 weeks of filming towards the very end. So the animation pipeline was banana sandwiches.
Heard a lot about that. Yeah.
It was a nightmare. So when we came to do Shadow of War, they were like, we want to do this differently. We want to ask you, as the lead, who do you want to work with? We've got this person who's doing Vikings. We got this person who's doing Breaking Bad. We've got this person. And they're bringing in all these director ideas. And I'm like, you guys have the vision. Like, I'm looking at the vision on the whiteboard. I was up in Seattle, and I was like, you guys have the vision. All you need is someone to translate that to the actors. That seems to be where it's sticky for you right now. They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, most of the people you talked about are going to come in. They're going to have their own vision. And it's not that you have the cinematic language that you already have. You don't need to bring someone in to kind of give it that touch.
Yeah.
You really need someone who can speak actor. You don't need a coach. You need a quarterback. And they went, but a quarterback is on the field with the team. I was like, yeah. They said a quarterback is one of the players. And I went, well, what does it look like if I do it?
Yeah.
So they did. And I started working with Judith Weston. I have her book somewhere. And any actor or director especially should read that book, Directing Actors. It's incredible. And I talked to Judith, and she walks me through, and she's like, I'm excited to work with you. I was like, there's just one more thing I should tell you. This thing that I'm directing, I'm also the lead in. She goes, and this is the first thing you're directing? I said, yes. She goes, oh. And I'm like, star pupil, teacher's pet. She goes, it's very simple. You need to quit one of those jobs.
Oh.
And I went, well,
No.
I can't do that. She goes, then I can't help you, because I'm telling you, for your first time out, you can't do both of these things. So I did it. And what I learned is I should not be the lead and be the director as well, because I don't have the experience yet. I try to compare myself to Clint Eastwood or Ben Affleck or Mark Duplass, and those guys have so much experience that I don't have. So that was in 2014. Cut to doing this new project with Lightspeed LA with Last Sentinel. I've learned a lot. I've learned how to trust my team. I've learned what my lanes are and how important it is to not only determine the lanes, but the responsibility and the accountability, so that everybody knows when they're swerving in, including me, to someone else's lane. It's not about, hey, stay in your lane. It's just to let you know you're swerving into my lane. I've got this. Those lanes, those boundaries, those restrictions actually reinforce trust. There was this incredible sociology experiment that some thinkheads did, where they took a flock of sheep and they put it in a pasture without any fences. And the sheep bundled together and would only move as a herd. And they would only move in small, like they wouldn't take over the entire pasture. They would stay in the middle. Same sheep, same pasture, they put up fences and the sheep scattered and explored. And those boundaries, those restrictions actually offer protection, and they offer freedom to be able to explore. As we know nothing can get in. I know where the boundaries are. I know I'm not going to go too far, because this is telling me that. So I've learned more about design. I've learned more about narrative. I learned how those two integrate. I've learned more about the process of making a game. I've learned more about performance and how to work with an actor, how to reduce it to its quintessence and its simplicity. I feel like even on this project, my direction gets more simple. It's really just a question. It's like, what's your objective? Like, what do you want to do here? Well, I really feel like, my character is trying to go for, and I feel like if I can get them to, feel this way, and I want to make sure that I'm conveying this, and I'll tell an actor, I'm like, that's a lot. That's a big burden for you have to carry in this scene. Distill that down in 2 words. To what? And I think a lot of actors are afraid that it's too simple. And if it's too simple, they're not doing enough. To confront, to console, to comfort, to question, to love, to whatever. It's like, to what? Just play that. If you just play that the entire time, let that be the scene. And it's okay. The character is the character. This is just the scene. And this scene is comprised of beats. So let this beat lead to this beat, lead to this beat. And when we've accomplished our objective, the scene's over. It's that easy. And then we'll move on to the next one. You don't have to worry about tracking this character arc all the way over. I'll let you know. I'll let you know if it's too far. Trust us.
So what advice would you give any other actors who are thinking about stepping into the director's chair? Obviously, don't star in and direct the same game.
Don't do that shit. Here's what I've learned, and I've learned this through Craig Mazin. Craig puts it best. He goes, I wake up and I have 1,000 arguments. That's directing.
Oh my God.
Tim Miller put it this way to me. He said, directing is 90% meetings, and every once in a while they let me go to set to have fun. And it is all about the preparation. I spend more time reading through the scripts, being in Slack or on Zoom with the team, syncing up with the writers, syncing up with my cinematics director, going over storyboards, reviewing casting auditions, all of that stuff. And then every once in a while I get to go to set. And that's going to be 8 hours of my day. And fortunately, the way that we shoot is we'll do 2 to 3 week blocks. And so I really get to stay in it. And that's all that I do. And I live and I breathe that project. Everything else goes away. I have an incredible team that makes sure that all the other machinations that have to happen with other projects, those wheels stay spinning so that I'm really dialed in and focused on this thing. But more than anything, it's understanding that just like an actor, just like anybody else, I have to do my prep work. The thing that drives me crazy is when I get on set or in the booth and some director goes, okie dokie, what are we doing here? What's the scene? Walk me through here what the story is. I'm like, are you just now looking at this for the first time? That can't be the case. I don't need an on-set acting coach. What I need is someone who goes, I've got you. I have more information than you do. All you need to know is the information that's pertinent to you. I will cover the rest. Simplifying it to this. You cannot direct, and I've done this and I've learned this mistake. I failed when I said, I'm going to direct this and I have a chip on my shoulder of either trying to prove something to someone or trying to impress someone. And you can't direct that way. Directors must submit themselves. It is a constant process of humbling, submitting myself to servitude. It's not about having control. It's about relinquishing control. When I'm doing my job at its optimal is when I'm sitting on set and I'm watching my DP be able to tell the actors exactly where they need to be, where the cinematics director is looking over, and we're all doing this together. Steven Spielberg says, I direct directors. That's all I do. I have a director of actors. I have a director of photography, a director of wardrobe, a director of sets. I direct directors. That's all I have to do. If I can watch how everyone, and even sometimes, I don't necessarily like direct actors to direct each other, but if I see them having conversations back and forth and they're trying some stuff, great. I think before I was trying to do everything. And this is same thing as an actor. What's the least amount that I can do? What's the least amount that I can say that conveys what's at stake in this scene?
I love that. That's really cool. I'm excited to see what happens with The Last Sentinel.
Me too.
We're
working really, really hard on it. It's a very ambitious project. We have an incredible amount of talent, and sometimes, taking all these rock stars and A-listers, as you would, the industry, and putting them under one roof can present a challenge. And like how we work together as a team, because when every single member of that team comes from a studio that has a trophy case that's filled with accolades. That's hard to navigate going, well, this is the way we've always done it. And it's just the same thing as me. It's like, well, how are we going to find our process? And ultimately, at the end of the day, how are we together going to tell the best version of this story?
Yeah. So when I do these interviews with actors, I love to end with a question about what they want to do next. But it feels super weird to ask you this question because you've done everything. So
Yeah.
I don't know, like what, like you've, and you just, you're Indiana Jones now and you're directing. So for you, like, what is next for you, or what would you like to do next? Like, what's your next Everest that you're looking for?
To me, it's very clear. I've been fortunate enough to work with, as we started off saying, is like literally the best in this industry, and being able to develop those relationships and learn from the Neil Druckmanns, the Ken Levines, and the Craig Mazins, and the David Finchers, and the Hideo Kojimas, and the Todd Howards. These people I've learned from. And what I want to do is, because I love this industry so much, is like, well, I've helped people make things. And what does it look like for me to get people to help me make something? So that's definitely the next star on the horizon is, what do I make? What does that look like?
Well, I know me and everyone else listening is looking forward to seeing that. That sounds really exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being so open and honest and vulnerable with me today. I really appreciate it.
If you can't tell, I love talking about this stuff, and I will do it ad nauseum. So thank you for giving me the platform to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.